Hi, good afternoon, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard, and she's just declassified the CIA files that speak about 120 biolab bases in over 30 countries. Now, for me, that raises more questions than it actually answers. Now, Tulsi Gabbard's leaving her position at the end of the month, and is she being forced out or is she leaving on her own accord? And also, the other sort of question that it leaves there for me is why they're releasing that now. Now, for those that don't know, it's only being released because Victoria Nuland had to sit in front of Congress and answer questions, and she actually tried to sidestep a question about whether or not the Ukraine had bioweapons and stuff like that there. And she basically came out and she says Ukraine has bioweapon facilities. She then went on to say how she was concerned that Russia was going to take control of these facilities, and that again raises more questions for me. For example, on the Russia thing, if you're provoking Russia using Ukraine, why aren't you securing that information first? Why aren't you getting that information and all the research that you're concerned Russia might take control of out of there first before you start using Ukraine to agitate Russia? And then the second thing for that is basically, um, if they've had this information before, why are we only hearing about it now after someone's speaking about it in Congress? Because I remember in 2017 or 18, it was in the Q drops. All the conspiracy theories were laughed at and it was debunked and it was Russian disinformation and stuff like that there. Here's a little clip of Tulsi and exactly what she said regarding the biolabs in Ukraine.
Today, I'm releasing new evidence of long-standing U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people.
Now, again, this information is only coming out after Congress has spoke about it because they're concerned that Russia will take control of this information. Now, that's giving me Iraq vibes. 100 or 40 billion lost in equipment when they pulled out of Iraq. How come all of a sudden they keep losing equipment and bioweapons and stuff like that? Because it's not even that there. See, the thing is, right now, everybody will go, oh, it's America spent all this money doing this bioweapon program, and what's going to happen is Russia's going to come in and take it, and America would have lost all that money. Now, that's not the actual issue. One is like, why are they hiding it from the American taxpayer in terms of they're keeping it off the books, nobody knew about it, it's completely secret. That's not on the up and up. And two is, if Russia comes in and takes it, then anything they ever release as a bioweapon, they can blame Russia. And now they've got, a plausible alibi as, oh, we were researching all that stuff, but Russia came in, took the information, and, Russia released it all into the public. So that would be like a plausible deniability for the American government when it comes to why they let the biolabs be taken. So again, I wouldn't be 100% on what you hear when it comes out and says that Tulsi Gabbard is all of a sudden releasing this information, because we were speaking about it as conspiracy theorists in 2017, and they were telling you it was Russian disinformation and stuff like that there. Lo and behold, a few years later, comes out, and everything we said back then turns out to be true. Who would have thought it? And then the thing is about the biolabs in Ukraine, why that's important, because it's showing you that there's American funded agencies there, which is funding biolabs in Ukraine. But then if you remember, Dr. Fauci, who also worked for an American agency, was funding the Wuhan lab in China. That's also an American funded thing, and it's the exact same type of research that they're doing. So, and just to give you another wee scenario, right? So, if you've got 120 biolabs over 30 countries, think of just of a few things that you could actually do with those sort of facilities. Okay, so first thing you could do with those facilities, by actually releasing the virus in 30 locations or 120 locations over 30 countries at a time, what you could actually do is manipulate how infectious a virus is, because people will perceive the virus to be more infectious if you're releasing it in 30 different locations or 30 different times, rather than it making its way from China. And when you watch the way every government all acted the same way, and every government all had the same restrictions and implementations on their public, then you make people believe it's spreading fast and wide and all that there, and then you get Trump who comes in and does Operation Warp Speed, and then everybody gets the vaccine and stuff like that there, and you've got both sides pushing the vaccine, and you have people that don't trust them on either side. And then when you think about, not only do they not trust them because of the unknown substances they're now being asked to take into their body, and in some cases people were almost forced, if it was dependent on their livelihood and stuff at the time, they were almost forced. In places like the Philippines, the Prime Minister or the President or whatever he is over there, he'd come out and he'd said that he was willing to shoot people on the street if they didn't get the COVID vaccine. So that there's crazy things like that there that people forget that actually went on. And then the vax goes from being a free public health, commodity, to being licensed and being sold, and all of a sudden trillions disappear. Trillions, absolute trillions. And the main benefactors of that are Pfizer, Bill Gates, all the usual suspects. Now, this is a subject that I think I'm going to follow on and look down, because this was actually something that was first sort of reported in the Q drops, the big dirty conspiracy theory Q drops. And at the time, I was right into it. I loved it and all there, and it was too far out to be believable. But this is bringing back what they actually were, and I just want to see how much of the information actually comes from that's going to be released in these further drops. So tell me, do you reckon Tulsi's being forced out? Or what I think they might be doing is they might be taking her out of the public light and being associated with the Trump administration. JD Vance comes off a wee bit weird and stuff like that there. So what I think they might be doing is giving her a big thing like this to take her away from the public view, and she'll be remembered as a fan favourite and someone who had the people's best interest in mind. So, as I said, like, comment, subscribe, and we're going to follow this subject on. Enjoy your day. All the best.